Hi, I'm Sean Gannon, and this is Minute Math, and today we're learning about inequalities and their graphs.
Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math.
X is less than or equal to 1. Well, we have our number line here. Let's go create that. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Okay. Obviously, we could keep going, add more, but we're fine where we are. Okay. So they tell us that x is less than or equal to 1. So if it's equal to 1, we put a closed circle right there at 1. And then if it's less than, we shade to the left of that value. Okay? And there we have our graph. X is less than or equal to 1. M is greater than -2. Well, first thing I want to get my graph here. So let's say here we have 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? We want to graph m is greater than -2. So if it's not equal to, I put an open circle at the value. So -2, open circle. M is greater than -2, so we shade to the right. Hopefully you can see that. And there we have our graph. It goes on forever. For m is greater than a -2. X is less than or equal to 4. So we first want to get our units. Now we'll make sure 4 is somewhere there. So if we do 0 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, we got it in 5, 6. And -1, -2. Alright? Well, they tell us that x can equal 4. It means closed circle right there at 4. Now, x is also less than 4, so we shade to the left, and there we have our answer. X is less than or equal to 4. M is greater than a -6. Well, we want to make sure we have -6 in there, so let's go put a -6 here, and then we have -7, and then -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. Alright, and okay, we're done. So we're going to make sure we have our line graph be near -6. Now they say m is greater than -6. Since it's not equal to, we put an open circle right there at -6. Now we're going to be shading to the right because m is greater than -6, so we put the shade to the right, and there we have our graph. M is greater than a -6. -5 is greater than or equal to a. Well, we want to number our number line here and make sure we have -5 there. So if we put -5 here, we have -4, -6, and well, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. Okay? Now they tell us -5 is equal to our a value. Okay? So it's equal to, we have a closed circle there. Then it says -5 is greater than or equal to a. I like to rewrite this to have a come first. So if I have a is less than or equal to -5, there we have the same thing, right? We can flip everything together. -5 is greater than or equal to a is the same thing as a is less than or equal to -5. Well, from there, okay, a is less than, so we have to shade to the left here and put a -7 there, and there we have it. We have our graph that represents -5 is greater than or equal to a. 4 is greater than or equal to x. First thing I like to do is flip this to have the variable come first. That's the same thing as saying x is less than or equal to 4. I find that easier to use. Now, let's go make a little number line here. Make sure we encompass 4. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and -1, -2, -3, and 1 out. Let's get on a 7 there. All right. Well, they tell us that x can equal 4. That means we have a closed circle right there at 4. X is also less than 4, so we're going to shade to the left, and there we have our answer. Our graph for 4 is greater than or equal to x. -2 is less than b. Well, one thing I like to do is rearrange this to have the variable come first. That's the same thing as b is greater than a -2. Kind of flip everything together, okay? With that, we need to make our number line, make sure we have -2 in it. So we have, let's say, 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, and 1, 2, 3. Okay? And now they say b is greater than -2, but not equal to. So that means we have an open circle at -2. b being greater than -2, we shade to the right, and there we have our graph. For -2 is less than b. 1 is greater than x. Well, first thing I want to do is have the variable come first. So I'm rewriting this, have x come first. That's mean x is less than 1. These mean the same thing. So let's write our number line now. 0 here, 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3. They tell us x is less than 1, meaning not equal to. That's an open circle right there at 1. Since x is less than 1, we shade to the left. And there we have our answer for x is less than 1. -r is less than or equal to -2. First thing, I want to get r completely by itself. There's a negative out in front of it. So if I multiply, let's say, both sides by a negative, -1, we erase that, right? Make it a little nicer here, by a -1, okay? What that does is give me r by itself. Now when we multiply or divide by a negative over the inequality, it needs to flip. Okay, so less than becomes a greater than. -2 times -1 is a +2. So now, -r less than or equal to -2, it's the same thing as r is greater than or equal to +2. So now let's graph that. We got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1, -2, -3. All right, r is greater than or equal to 2. See 2 here, and since it's equal to 2, we got a closed circle. Now they tell us that r is also greater than that 2, so we need to shade to the right, and there we have our graph, our final answer. 4 is less than or equal to -n. I want to get n completely by itself, okay, and I like to have it written first. So let me go rearrange this to have it written first. -n is greater than or equal to 4. These mean the same thing. We flip the inequality, but we're about to flip it again. If I multiply both sides by -1, that gets me n completely by itself. Multiplication or division over an inequality flips the sign again. So we have less than or equal to now, and 4 times -1 is a -4. Alright, so now we have n is less than or equal to -4. So now we want to graph that. So let's go put a -4 here, and then -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and -5, -6 right here. All right. They tell us that n now is equal to -4. That's a closed circle right there at -4. Since it's also less than, we shade to the left. And now we have a graph that matches our inequality. 4 is less than or equal to -n. -n is less than or equal to -5. We want to get n completely by itself. And to do that, I need to multiply both sides by a -1. That will eliminate the negative on the left, giving me n by itself. But when we multiply over an inequality by a negative number, we need to flip that inequality. Less than or equal to becomes a greater than or equal to sign. -5 times -1 is a +5. So now we have n is greater than or equal to +5. Let's graph it. So let's put 0 here, 1, 2, let's get a number line going. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and -1, -2. Well, since n can equal 5, we put a closed circle right here at 5. N is also greater than 5, so we need to shade to the right. And there we have our graph that represents our original inequality. -n is less than or equal to -5. 1 is less than a -x. I want to get x by itself completely. And I like to have it written first. So first I'm actually going to rewrite this. I have -x come first, flip the inequality to a greater than sign, and 1. These two mean the same thing. Then I can multiply both sides by -1. That gets me x by itself. We multiply by a negative over the inequality. That inequality flips from a greater than to a less than sign. 1 times -1 is a -1. Kind of tricky here, okay? But now we have our inequality. So now let's graph it. Well, put 0 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, -1, -2, -3, -4. Okay? And now x cannot equal -1. If I was given this inequality, n is greater than or equal to 3/2, okay? Well, we all know that 3/2 is the same thing as 1 and 1/2, right? So n is greater than or equal to 1 and 1/2. So when we graph this, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, -1, -2. Well, if n is equal to 1 and 1/2, or 3/2, that's right here. That's going to be a closed circle because it's equal to, so it's halfway between 1 and 2, right? 1 and 1/2. n being greater than, we shade to the right from there, so right there. And there we have it. Our graph that represents n is greater than or equal to 3/2. K is less than 2. Well, first let's get our number line. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, -1, -2, -3. I want to get k by itself. Well, they said k is less than 2, not equal to, so that means we have an open circle at 2. Less than tells us that it shades to the left, and there we have it. Our graph that represents k is less than 2. P is greater than or equal to -1 and 1/2. Okay? First thing, let's go get our number line. 0, -1, -2, -3, -4. 1, 2, 3, and 4 right there. They tell us P is greater than or equal to -1 and 1/2. So -1 and 1/2 occurs right here. Equal to, closed circle, okay? Then we want to shade to, well, the right. P is greater than that, so we shade to the right. And there we have our graph that matches our inequality. P is greater than or equal to -1 and 1/2. N is greater than or equal to 1. Well, first thing I want to do is to get n, or n's already by itself, right? But I want to graph this. So to do on the number line here, I want to have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and -1, -2, -3. All right. N is equal to 1. That means we have a closed circle at 1. N is greater than 1, which means we shade to the right, and there we have our graph. This graph now matches our inequality for n is greater than or equal to 1. X is greater than or equal to -2. First thing, let's get a number line here. 0, 1, 2, 3, and -1, -2, -3. It tells us that x can equal -2. That means we have a closed circle right there at -2. X is also greater than -2, so we put our arrow to the right, and there we have our graph. So our graph matches our final answer for x is greater than or equal to -2. -2 and 1/2 is less than or equal to n. Well, I want to get n completely by itself. It already is, but I'd like it also to be written first. So I can rearrange this to have n come first, and we flip the inequality when we do so, and we have n is greater than or equal to -2 and 1/2. Now, this is a little easier to graph. So let's put our number line. 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, we see at -2 and 1/2, n can equal that. That means we have a closed circle at -2 and 1/2, which is right there between -3 and -2. Greater than sign tells us to shade to the right, and now we have our graph that represents the inequality. -2 and 1/2 is less than or equal to n. -1 and 1/2 is greater than -n. First thing is I like to have my inequality, or my variable, written first. So I'm going to flip everything and have -n is less than -1 and 1/2. Make sure when you do that, you flip the inequality. Now, I don't like the -n. N needs to be completely by itself. So if I multiply both sides by -1, n now is completely by itself. But in doing so, multiplying a negative over the inequality makes the inequality flip sign. So n becomes now, or less than, becomes a greater than sign. Negative 1 1/2 is now a positive 1 1/2. So now it's time to graph. So we have a number line, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. All right. Well, if n is greater than 1 1/2 here, it's not equal to, which means we have an open circle. So 1 1/2 is right here. We got an open circle there. Okay. N is also greater than, so we shade to the right. And there we have our answer for our graph for n, or negative 1 1/2 is greater than negative n. If I was given this inequality, negative 1 1/2 is greater than or equal to v. I always like my variable to be written first, so I'm going to rewrite this. V comes first, and we flip everything. Greater than or equal to sign becomes less than or equal to sign, and then negative 1 1/2 here. All right, V is now written first. So let's go write our number line. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and negative 4. All right. It tells V is less than or equal to negative 1 1/2. Equal to tells me closed circle. So we put a closed circle right here at negative 1 1/2. Shade to the left because V is less than that, so we shade to the left here. And there we have it. Our graph that represents the inequality for negative 1 1/2 is greater than V. At negative 2, we got an open circle, and it's shaded to the left here. So what does this graph mean as an inequality? Well, they tell us here, let's use the variable a, okay? They say negative 2, right? We have negative 2. We say that a cannot equal negative 2, so we don't put any equal to sign. And the arrow is going to the left, so a is less than negative 2. So we have a less than sign, and there we have it. A is less than negative 2. So right here at 5, we have a closed circle, and it's shaded to the left. I don't need to write it the whole way, but it's shading to the left there. Well, let's use the variable x here. They tell us it's a closed circle at 5, so we have an equal to, and we're shading to the left, so it's a greater or less than sign. So we have 5 here, so x is less than or equal to 5 is represented by this graph. We got a closed circle at 5, a negative 5 here, and we're shading to the right. Okay? Well, let's use the variable b here, okay? Since we're shading to the right, b is greater than that negative 5, where we're starting at there, okay? Now, it's not, we have an open circle, so it's just greater than, no equal to, and that's it. Our answer here is just b is greater than negative 5. So right at 5, we got a closed circle, and we're shading to the right, okay? Pretty short there, we're shading to the right there, okay? So let's use the variable x to represent here. Closed circle tells me it can equal that 5, so put the equal to sign there. And since we're shading to the right, x is greater than. And there we have it. X is greater than or equal to 5 is represented by this graph. At negative 2, we got an open circle. We then shade to the right here, okay? All right, so let's use the variable b, all right? Negative 2, and they have an open circle, so it's not equal to, but we shade to the right. So that's a greater than sign and negative 2. No equal to sign, so it's just greater than, and there we have it. B is greater than a negative 2 is the inequality for this graph. Closed circle here at negative 5. We shade to the right, right? That's what the graph tells us, it's shaded to the right. All right, let's use the variable a here. What do we know about this graph? Well, it's shading to the right, so we're going to use a greater than sign. It's also, the closed circle means it's equal to that value, and we're right here at negative 5. And there we have it. Here's our inequality that represents the graph below. We got a closed circle here at 1, and it's shaded to the left, okay? Let's use the variable x here, and since it said it's shaded to the left, we can see that we have to use a less than sign. Closed circle tells me it's equal to as well, and the number we're at is 1. And so now we have really our answer, inequality for the graph. X is less than or equal to 1. right here at positive 1, we got a closed circle. And we're shading to the right. All right? So let's use the variable x here. We're shading to the right, so we have to use a greater than sign. Okay? Shading to the right, greater than sign. It's equal to closed circle, right? So we put an equal to, closed circle represents that, and we're at positive 1. So there we have it, our final answer. X is greater than or equal to a positive 1.
Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math. Minute Math. When you need help, you use Minute Math. MinuteMathTutor.com.